What's going on, guys? I am back with another reaction video. This time today we are going to watch the How Streaming Caused the TV Writer Strike by Vox. um for those of you who don't know, I live in California, so the writer strike is a big story down here, especially because of its effect on upcoming content. And now that the Screen Actors Guild is also on strike with them as well, this could be something crazy. Like, I think it's going to cost like the California economy like millions, like not like like tens of millions of dollars while this is going. And the craziest part is we also almost had a lot of places strike. What, the railroad union almost went on strike. The Teamsters, basically UPS, and the postal workers almost went on strike. I know in England, the doctors there went on strike for months. So it's kind of crazy. All these things are happening like around the same time. But I'm not really that well informed on the writer's strike, other than watching the Philip DeFranco videos and this and that, just kind of hearing bits and pieces of information. But I do know streaming is a big part of the writer's strike, streaming and AI. So today we're going to focus on streaming, and if you really want to dive into it more, there is I don't know how many of you know who Dan Lebitard is, but he used to work for ESPN as a major like personality for them, and then he left ESPN around the pandemic, and he's built something of his own, the Dan Lebitard Show with
Very
Stu
soon
Gatz.
you're about
But I want to show you this video right here called where he talks to Alex O'Keefe, who wrote for the hit show. Was it The Bear, I believe? Yeah, there you go. Look in the description. It's The Bear, and he was like barely making ends meet on that. And I haven't seen this video by Vox, but I've always wondered how streaming has changed things. I know they don't make any like residuals off that. Like, for some reason, the studios were able to keep most of the money off that. I remember there was a big actor um, when he made pennies on their streaming residuals, and these are like big stuff that's going on streaming, like The Office, That 70s Show, How I Met Your Mother, Friends, all these things. Like, they should be making money off those things, especially now that they're on strike, or especially now that they're on streaming, but they're not making money off that because it's on these streaming platforms. So I'm very interested to see, because I've always been curious about the writer strike. And obviously, um, you could always go and talk. You could always go watch stuff all over the internet. Like, as you can see just here in the recommended, you have even ESPN's talking about the writer strike with oh, what's his name? Mike Schur. He's always on Dad Lebitard show all the time. Adam Conover has been huge. Like, he's been all over the place. So obviously he has a following on YouTube, so he's using that to talk about the writer strike because he's also a TV writer. And I'm very interested. Like, I'm gonna put the link to this video in the description because I think you guys need to hear about it. Because I remember when he went on Dad Lebitard's show and told about his struggle, like, Dan Lebitard raised money for them. Like, he got like some of his supporters, and Dan Lebitard has a legion of loyal listeners and watchers. And I think they raised 30,000 for him in like a couple of weeks, and then he used that he put all that. Alex O'Keefe put all that money in a fund to support other broke actors like him. And I mean, look at this quote says it all. I would have made more money working in the restaurant, like than actually writing the show. So I'm very interested to see what Vox has to say. They're obviously going to come correct. They're very polished, and let's see what's going on. Let's see if we can all learn something today, because everything's changing with the rising of streaming services, alternative platforms for us to get the content, so we don't have to rely on traditional ways to watch. Like, is there really any like apartment viewing anymore besides live sports? Like, there's nothing where you're just going to sit down, and there's not a lot of things that will make you just sit down and watch something like anticipating, like, I need to get home by 7 o'clock so I can watch this show. Nothing does that anymore, especially now the fact that you can just all watch it all on streaming. And me, personally, I am a binger. So even right now with a lot of anime, I'm just waiting for them to finish so I can binge them all. I'm only really watching two or three week to week. It's My Happy Marriage, it's Mushoku Tensei, and it's Zom 100. And only those because they really struck me. Like, obviously Mushoku Tensei because I think that's the GOAT anime, and I will not have anybody change my mind on that. But the other two really caught me. All the other ones, I'm just gonna, once they're all done, I'm gonna be binging like crazy, because right now all I'm doing is binging all the ones from the spring that I didn't watch. So Let's go. Let's dive right on in. Vox, let's see what you have for us. Boom. 11,500. Because actually, if I remember correctly, it was supposed to be almost the directors almost went on strike too, but they got a deal like at like the 11th hour, and a lot of people weren't happy about that because of the terms of their deal, because they got streaming residuals, and it was a pretty easy negotiation with the directors. But why is it so hard with the writers and the actors, especially now that you're adding AI? And we've already seen. I'm not going to say AI work when they had Carrie Fisher in all three of the prequel or of the sequel trilogy, even though she died, I believe, in after the first one. She died after the first episode 8 was made. So, obviously this is now slippery territory, and there's a lot of money to be made. And we'll see, obviously, in the future how all this pans out.
What's gotten us to this place is the rug was pulled out from under writers and, to a degree, actors in the last 10, 15 years. It's the advent of streaming, the golden age of television.
One of the first.
Probably Netflix was probably killing it early. Obviously, they're providing a service that nobody really had at the time. And obviously, I mean, the biggest like loser of it was Blockbuster, if I remember at the time. I think there's only like a few of them left, right? And they're more like novelties now than actual stores. So, and then, once, once Netflix was making all that buku money, I think Hulu was the next one to rise up. And then after that, Amazon entered the game. Obviously, as you see here, there's HBO, there's Apple TV. I mean, Disney Plus. Who doesn't have a streaming service anymore? Like even AMC, Discovery Channel, all these places have streaming services now. So, boy.
Streaming original shows was House of Cards.
What a fantastic
alert,
show. Well,
when they pushed Kate Mara
Kevin
in front of that
Spacey.
train, it seemed like groundbreaking television. And it was fast-paced, and it looked beautiful, and it had huge stars.
Artistically, it's opened up.
I guess the one thing about House of Cards that really struck me is that, like, how real it felt. Like, this could actually happen if there was a guy smart enough to do it, right? Obviously, there's things here like, how is the guy really going to get away with murdering Kate Mara like he did? But House of Cards wasn't like the first Netflix show that got me. If you guys remember, Marco Polo? That show, I thought that show was fantastic, but apparently it cost a lot to make, so it only lasted, and was it a couple seasons? And then they ended it on like the worst cliffhanger. Oh God, I wish they would bring that show back. But Netflix has clearly shown itself that when it's great, when it hits, it's fantastic. Obviously, with shows like Peaky Blinders, Kingdom, which may be the greatest zombie like media I've ever seen. Like, it basically shows how season 8 of Game of Thrones should have went, except in feudal Korea. What a fantastic show. What a fantastic show, man. Obviously Squid Game, but then there was also probably a lot of duds and a lot of times where they quit before they should finish it properly. Like The Witcher started off great, but now it's bad. Last Kingdom, I think they ended the season too early, so they tried to fit basically Brita, who's one of the main antagonists from season, I believe, 5 of The Last Kingdom, which mainly deals with like England and the Viking Age. Like, Brita was one of the antagonists. She deserved her own season, especially knowing with how we know her history in the show. They wasted her in like fucking 4 episodes when she deserved a whole season. They could have gone, if they weren't going to end the show, do 2 more seasons so you can everybody can get their just due, and then we go from there. But what can you do? What can you do? But you also see Netflix investing in more anime, so that's why Zom 100 is fantastic. The fact they got the exclusive rights to North America for Komi Can't Communicate. The Netflix is a big player, and it's crazy to see. I wonder how many people really foresaw that at the time. especially with the stigma of like these, like Kevin Spacey was a big. I understand I'm not supposed to like talk about him now based on what we know that he was doing, with, especially with Me Too, but Kevin Spacey was a big actor, and then to see Kevin Spacey go to Netflix was like a really big deal, especially, you know, you have that stigma with like big movie actors. Like you'll never catch Denzel on a TV show. Like people, I remember people lost their minds when Agents of Shield came out and Nick Fury was in like the first episode. So people were like, whoa, what's going on? You know? So it's just kind of interesting.
The world, maybe there used to be 80 shows in a year. Now you're up to 500, 550 shows in a year. And for writers, it was good because it gave people entry.
And a lot of those people were diverse young voices who Hollywood said, oh, you should come out to move to LA or New York, places where the cost of living is extremely high. Absolutely. And you have a seat at the table that for years created careers for people.
That's crazy. Like why LA or New York, these really, like, as a person who lives in California, obviously I live like pretty close to LA. Like it ain't no joke out here, man. Just to get a 1-bedroom apartment is ridiculous now. Ridiculous. I can't even. Oh boy. So it's crazy that those became the hubs and they only like do that there. And then obviously with the, you'd like to believe with the increase of like from, was it 80 shows to 500 shows, like the guy said, 550, that there's a lot more like job opportunities, but I wonder how competitive the field is as well, you know?
Now, it doesn't exist like that anymore.
What's the difference between a network show and a streaming show? Network is the TV we all grew up with, ABC, NBC, CBS. And it's the season that begins in September and runs 22 episodes and ends in May. So that's a season, especially for procedurals that everyone knows, like Grey's Anatomy or CSI's. TV like seasons always began in September. And that had something to do with auto sales, by the way. Really? The new car seasons came out, and they were going to advertise heavily, so you wanted new TV.
Really? That's very interesting. Because, you know, obviously, I always thought that because football came back, because, you know, football is a big machine. Like, one of the, always draws the highest ratings. It's crazy how much America loves, for anybody watching outside the U.S., like American football. Like the NFL is king. It's absolutely king. And they'll put some crap on Thursday night and you'll fucking watch it. And I stopped watching Thursday night games for real because it was just a bad product. But I am the complete exception to what most football watchers watch, especially if it's your team. So I always thought it was around that, but it's crazy to think that the automotive industry has that kind of power in media, in like TV media, especially because you always notice that you get the 2024 Chevy Tahoe, you know, those commercials always start around football season, but then at the same time, you know, all of a sudden the next season of Law and Order is coming up, or the next season of CSI. That's interesting to know that, you know, it's crazy how like a lot of things like weave in together.
The network model worked for a very long time and gave people a stable career.
I broke in on Law and Order Criminal Intent. I was on staff.
Criminal Intent was my least favorite of all the criminal intents.
So you get paid by the episode or by the week. They said you'll make $15,000, and I thought that was it. I didn't know they meant for every episode.
Yo, hold on. He said he was making $15K an episode? Like, you like to believe even now with today's like economy and all that, obviously they got to account for inflation. So I wonder how much how much that money would be now. But let's just take 15K. Like if that was me, 15K for basically half the year, like I would live pretty well off that because I don't really have a lot of stuff to my name. I do have like maybe a lot of video games and shoes, but not enough to say it's a problem. But that is crazy. 15K an episode? Like, what is it? 15 times 4 is 60. So 60. Damn, you're making almost 200 grand? You think? No, more. Way more. Almost. But obviously, you got to account for tax. But 15K. Jesus Christ. Bro, if you hit Law and Order, like, you're set. Like, if you were thinking about that, you get Law and Order, like you said, Criminal Intent, which is the worst of the three that I know of. Like, was it regular Law and Order, then there's Criminal Intent, then there's SVU. SVU's the GOAT. But Criminal Intent is like, that's crazy. That's effing crazy, man. Even with like tax, I wonder how much they take out for taxes. But if you know every week you got at least, let's just say you got 10K coming in. That's crazy.
I didn't understand what I'd stumbled into. So I was able to make a living, start raising a family in New York. I think those doors have closed now. So the upside of streaming creatively was you didn't have to worry about commercial breaks. If I write an SVU, we have 5 commercial breaks in an hour of TV. Something has to happen at the end of that act to make sure people come back. Your writing has to conform to the advertising that pays for it. If you write for streaming, you don't have to worry about commercial breaks. You get to write a different structure. Maybe it's just an organic 3-act structure to an hour. Now you're down to 8-episode runs, 6-episode runs. Shorter seasons where you could arc a story across 8 episodes.
So, okay, so let's use his like arbitrary 15K. So if you're working on like Stranger Things now, obviously, like you said, things change. You don't have to write for advertisers anymore. So obviously you just lost a ton of money because it's not even like 22 or what is it? What was it, 26? Like it's been cut by almost 3/4. If you're making 15K, now you got to have 3 Stranger Things to match what you were making with Law and Order SVU or Law and Order or a network show. So and obviously you got new people coming in as older writers are leaving the industry, but that's crazy to just basically cut your income by 3/4. I mean, oh man, I don't know. Maybe the numbers are going through in my mind. Really, I mean, obviously using myself, that's still 15K times. So now you're making 120 instead of however much you were making, and obviously we're just using the 15K as an arbitrary number. I mean, that's still good living, but at the same time, like compared to, especially if you got used to living that buku lifestyle.
You can go a little darker, you can go a little deeper. That part of it was great, and writers from movies flocked to it, and novels flocked to it.
But as the episode orders have shrunk, what used to be 40 weeks out of the year that you were working is now 20 weeks. So try having to go from finding 1 job a year to finding multiple jobs a year.
3 if you want to work all year.
Maintain the same status quo that you previously had. It's tough.
I don't think anyone's asking to go back to 20-episode seasons, but the stability and the longevity of those jobs is the model that we're asking for and that we think is best for writers and best for the product.
So now I have a question. So is she saying that they want the longevity, right? So let's use Stranger Things again. So are they looking like, okay, if I sign on to Stranger Things, it's 8 episodes a season, but I want to be able to work on it for multiple seasons? So let's just say if you're okay, so I got Stranger Things, but then they're like, we're gonna sign you to a 3-season contract. Obviously, I don't know how the numbers work out or with the agents and all that, but we want to have you here for 3 seasons, barring something unfortunate where you have to leave the show or a situation where something like a breach of contract. That would be kind of like I understand that level of security, like a football contract, like, like running backs right now, they're not really getting the money that they should, especially for what their responsibilities are on the football field. But any professional athlete is looking for security, especially once they believe that they've earned that security. So you're trying to make as much money as you can. If you can't make it at your place where you're at now, you can make it somewhere else. But I understand the need for that security, but you're only getting paid for the weeks that you work, right? So if you're only working 8 and then however long it takes for the next season to come out, so now you got to find work in between the time that you wrote like the first season to the time they call you back to write the second season. So it still would be good to know, especially if I was a writer, and obviously, and this is just my speculation here, that to know that, okay, I'm still good for 2 more seasons. And obviously if the studio thinks you've done a good enough job, you'd like to believe that they'd be like, all right, let's get you we want 3 more seasons of this, and let's keep you going for 3 more seasons, but who knows.
Can you explain what's changed, how the writer's room looks different in each model?
The function of the writer's room is the exact same. Like, it is a group of writers coming together to break story, to craft a season, and to write episodes of television. When you get your first job writing on a TV show, you're almost always a staff writer, which is the lowest level in the room. And then the next rung on the ladder is story editor, from story editor to executive story editor, co-producer, producer, supervising producer, co-executive producer, and then executive producer is the highest, and showrunner, obviously.
The creative process is
this guy.
people coming
Why does he
together,
look like Batista?
having a conversation
Like Joe
about,
Batista.
is it a dark comedy, is it 1 hour, is it a half hour?
Breaking story and really writing your whole season. The next phase is production, when you bring all of your crew together, bring all of your actors, grab your directors, and you shoot the TV show.
I wonder how much
and then
overlap.
the final stage
Because
is
obviously,
post-production.
with looking like a show or a movie, like Justice League had to do a lot of reshoots. So they already wrote the movie, they already did some production, then post production. Like, oh my God, we got a lot of work to do. So then they go back to the writers. So the writers are writing like they're doing a lot of rewrites, and then they're reshooting. So I wonder how much overlap there is in between each. What do you call it? Each phase of like a show or a movie being made.
When you take that thing you shot, you sit with your editor, turn it into what people see on TV.
Broadcast shows kind of used to be the entire TV space. So if you were on a show like Law and Order SVU, or if you were on a show like Friends,
Overrated.
your show was being filmed, it was in production concurrently while you were in the writer's room.
Writers are going back and forth and really learning the ropes of what it is to produce a TV show. You know, and it might be in the moment when you're watching a scene and an actor might come up to you and say, like, this line just isn't working for me. The job of the writer at that moment is to talk to the actor, figure out what isn't working, and write them a new line.
The writer is working with the actor at all times. He's conjuring the character, he's meeting the actor that was cast, and should be there when that actor is giving life to those words.
Financially, of course it would cost studios to keep writers on and to pay those extra weeks to keep doing their job. It seems like their favorite place to cut the budget is with writers, robbing them of creativity and robbing them of people training up to be the showrunners of future shows.
Oh, well, that seems like it's counterintuitive, right? So you're just hoping that whatever the writers did before you let them loose, because you won't just want to pay for production now, not anymore. Writers, that seems kind of like counterintuitive. What if the show's bad, or maybe what if you discover something in production like, oh my God, we could really work with this because this isn't the first time. To give you an example, let's use sports again. That's like you have a coach all week helping you in practice, and then for the game the owner of the team's like, no, I don't want the coaches there. What if the game plan doesn't work, or if the team does something you didn't expect? That's why you have the coaches there, so that they could help you guys, help you out, you know. And obviously it's easy to use sports as an analogy, but I think that works, because if the writers aren't there and there's a problem, but you don't want to pay for more writers, like maybe you don't have like the full writing crew, but you should definitely have writers there just in case of emergency, right? And they probably do, but I mean, if they're the way they're talking about, if they're cutting it that much, no wonder we're getting some really badly written shows, like for instance Velma or The Rings of Power or whatever. I mean, you could name a myriad of other shows, and if you're just saying, okay, now that you're done, whatever you wrote is what you wrote, that's a problem.
Writers are now being separated from production, employed for fewer weeks.
Fewer weeks means less income. And when a show like Game of Thrones costs so much money and takes so much time to make, that's a longer period of time between seasons. And so that means these writers have a longer period of time before they are employed again.
Story-wise, there is something nice about having all of your episodes written before you start to produce.
Yeah,
it
in
really
a perfect
gives you a
world,
nice scope
you'd
of
have
the
no
season.
problems.
You know where all your locations are going to be. And if something happens in the last episode of your season that you realize there's a nice way to plant early in the season, you can go and play with that episode. On the other hand, not having your writers continue to be there and do the work that happens in production hurts the production and it hurts the writers.
There was this staff writer who was on The Bear, which is a streaming show on Hulu, and
I believe The Bear is basically about like these guys just start a restaurant together, and it starts off horribly, but then I think they eventually make something worthwhile. So
Story about how after working in this room, even though it was this critically acclaimed show,
oh,
and
that's the
they
guy I was
were
talking about.
winning
That's the
an
guy. That's the guy I was talking about on and he was on what do you call it, Dan Levitar show, talking about his struggles, even though he wrote a hit TV show, like to the point like you see him, he's holding a fucking award and he's still broke and all that. Like, if you write something that is praiseworthy and you like to believe you should be compensated as such, but with the changes in the industry, I mean, you have award-winning writers like still looking for jobs.
award, he went to the award show broke and had to rent a bow tie. What I thought was so interesting about that story was that it wasn't the pay per se that was the issue in that situation. It was the length of the room. So you went from having 40 weeks of guaranteed work to maybe 8 to 10.
That's tough.
It is always
So you're
very
always
difficult to
looking
work
for your
in our
next
industry.
opportunity.
Writers, directors, actors often have long stretches of idle time.
Periods where you're either looking for your next job, the next room that you're going to go write in, or the next feature that you're going to pitch. Residual checks are what let you do that.
Residuals, which are how actors and writers tide themselves over during lean times, have basically been decimated. When TV first began, there was a big strike in 1960, and that strike resulted in writers getting residuals. The reason my network residual is so healthy is because that was negotiated a long time ago when that was the only other way an episode could be rewatched. If you wrote for Friends or Seinfeld, these shows that are on all the time,
Every single time it's used, you get a check.
the number of runs your show has, the size of the check decreases. The show is generating income for NBC Universal, and so you will see some of that income. Now streaming comes in, and there's a terrible formula based on a percentage of the sale from the studio to the streamer.
So it sits on the platform for a year and you get one check no matter how many times it's watched.
If you write a show for Hulu, you get paid to write it, and you might see $400 for the next 3 years.
Yo, that's crazy. So they're taking complete advantage of them. Like, for instance, okay, so one of my friends watches The Office all the time. Like, she'll finish The Office and then just start over and rewatch it again. And you're telling me they're only getting paid just because it's on there, but they're not getting. There are millions of people who watch The Office, whether it was on Netflix or it's on Peacock now, if I remember correctly. That's where it's at. Like, if you had the opportunity to write for The Office, and obviously you did good work, and they kept you on, and you wrote something that is part of like pop culture forever. That's crazy. You're only making. Oh my God, that is the studios are making money hand over fist over that. Oh my God.
As opposed to a network rerun, which might be, for an hour show, might be $24,000.
I have talked to fellow writers who came up years before, and it was the difference between buying a house or not, between sending your kid to school or not, and for me it just seems like this pipe dream of getting residuals for the work that I've done.
This strike seems to be catching fire because it mirrors the discontent a lot of workers feel about this yawning wage gap between the top and the bottom.
Secondarily, but correlated, is that it's about the art that we're making. And if we're not given the time and the resources that we need to make good television, you're not going to have the diversity of voices, the diversity of ideas.
I think that we want to make sure that art isn't coming from only voices who can afford to do this as a job.
Like, okay, this is gonna sound weird. So look, in terms of these negotiations, let's use The Office again, okay? NBC Universal is always gonna make the most money out of the deal, right? But the people who wrote on that show just want enough to live by it. First of all, like, obviously these writers, like, we're talking about the creme de la creme of the writers. So basically the best of the best wrote for The Office, right? So of course they're gonna make more money than the average person. Same thing like most lawyers aren't like Harvey Specter from Suits. They're drowning in debt. They're just fucking making it. They're fucking barely making it, right? Same thing with most basketball players. Sure, they're all millionaires, but like not all of like LeBron never needs to work a fucking day in his life again. The fucking 15th guy on the bench after he's done playing. Sure, he has a healthy nest egg compared to most people, but he's not done. Like he has to go back to work. He has to find another way to keep making money, right? Because eventually that money's going to run out. And it's probably going to run out a lot quicker than you thought, especially if you're still living the same lifestyle that you were used to. So I think anybody who listens to this or watches this or even tries to learn about the strike, it's not just that they want their own, like they want what's fair because, hey, we wrote the show, right? I wrote, like, to use The Office again, like I wrote The Office, or somebody saying that, or maybe a writer, like I helped write The Office, okay? It was killing it on network television. I was making a ton of money, and now it's off network television. I don't think you can watch even reruns on like TV anymore. So it was on Netflix. I got fucking jobbed out of Netflix because nobody. Also at the time, I don't think a lot of people really knew how to make that work in terms of residuals or anything like that. And then now Netflix doesn't have it anymore. Now it's on NBC Universal, and now Universal is making all that money. But I'm still not seeing enough for all the hard work that I put in, because it's basically like the writers are the foundation of a show. Okay, as much as we like, man, freaking I don't know what's his name, Michael Scott. What's his fucking name? I don't know, but he acted his ass off in that scene. That doesn't happen without the writer setting the foundation behind and then working with Michael Scott to get to where you get. So it's basically like it basically sounds like the writers are gonna have to like pull the studio's teeth just to get enough to live by. Because obviously there's going to be like the creme de la creme who are killing, like that guy who was making $15,000 a Law and Order episode. And then, they play Law and Order everywhere. It's on USA. It's on all these other places. So that dude's probably still killing it in terms of residuals, right? But this is for the writer trying to break, the writer working his way up, that he should still be able to afford a living wage. And obviously, if this wasn't like a writer, if this was a plumber, like, I think a lot of people would understand more, but it's like a writer, it's viewed as a more glamour job. So I know there's some people who are just like, yo, shut up and make shows, which is also a problem with how we see these people and how we see, like, whether the celebrity culture or like how we look at athletes. Like, we got to understand that these people are still people too, but it just sounds like the studio is going to like go just like stand their ground. And I know, remember there was like an anonymous exec was like, we'll just wait until they start losing their houses, then they'll come to the table and we'll get everything that we want. When both sides are like, the studio's trying to win so bad that they can't even find a compromise that works for both sides. They just want to win the deal, which is a problem, because the Teamsters one with the youth postal workers, apparently that deal went by pretty well. Obviously it's still pending, like the postal workers themselves voting on the deal, but apparently, like, looking at some of the parts of that deal, it's pretty good for both sides, and at least both sides leadership are very happy what they got. So we'll see what happens when the workers actually vote on the agreement. But it's crazy that they wouldn't even. I guess also you don't want to put a face to the studios as for someone who's talking for them.
I got into writing because I was an actor and still am.
I've worked on The Adventures of Puss in Boots, Trolls, The Beat Goes On.
Channel Zero for Sci-Fi. I did a bunch of CBS procedurals, and most recently I was the showrunner of One of Us is Lying on Peacock.
Law and Order Criminal Intent. Then I went to In Treatment and did a show called Lights Out for FX. And then I wandered back into the Law and Order family and went to SVU.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, there's obviously AI and how that could be something, but streaming is just this big thing now that it's basically like the studios just want to keep holding on to that streaming pot and they don't want to share. So who knows? Anyway, that was very informative. From everything that we're seeing, it looks like the writers are in for the long haul. They are prepared to get to the point once the studios really start hurting, especially once we're getting bad content, and there's already enough bad content out there, especially with what Disney's been making lately. I heard Secret Wars was trash. I don't have Disney Plus, so I'm not gonna watch it. But my goodness, if we get to a point where I'm like, oh my God, they're doing reruns of the Late Show. Shout out to Jimmy Fallon, because apparently he is a terrible host to his writers. Apparently he's a really bad person to his writers. So yeah, if I can get better at that. But anyway, that was very interesting. I got a lot to think about. Check out this video by Vox, how streaming caused the TV's writer strike. Check out this interview by Dan Le Batard with Alex O'Keefe himself, and he's going to talk about his struggles and all that. I will put the video link. I'll put the link to this video in the description, so you can watch it for yourself and set your own kind of expectations, have your own opinions. But this was very informative. I guess one more thing, the Mushoku Tensei video is going to be a little late this week. I'm going out of town to celebrate a friend's birthday, so I won't be able to have it out on Sunday. Maybe if I'm good with my time, I can probably swing it for like late Sunday night. But if not, it's gonna come on Monday. I also I'm going through a little bit of writer's block right now, rewriting the Mako script. So I did something new. I made an AMV. Here it is. It's called Chase Your Core Too Far Too Close. Excuse me. I really kind of like it. I'm having I had a lot of fun making it. What I basically did was like Tuesday, I basically just said, you know what, fuck it, and I just did it. And I went deep into the night, and then I made the whole MV in about maybe like 12 hours, and I didn't sleep, and I couldn't even sleep like Wednesday when I was at work, so I was struggling. But I'm kind of proud of it. You know, I think it was a lot harder than I thought to make them. I was inspired by hip hop Sakuga. I follow them on my personal channel. I think I actually follow them on like my actual Random Guy Speaks channel. So it's been it was a very illuminating experience. I don't know if I'll ever do it again. Just the timing. It's like one person said this earlier when I had them check it out. It's like making an AMV takes your soul. And I completely underestimated that statement. So shout out to all the AMV makers out there. You guys are powerful, man. I don't know how you guys do this. I don't know how people do this for a living. So anyway, guys, that was my reaction to how streaming caused the TV writer strike by Vox. Check out, I will put the link to the Dan Le Batard interview on the description. I'll also put the link to my AMV, so check it out. Let me know what you think. I don't know. I've had some positive reactions so far from some other people. So, it has me feeling kind of good, but I'm still kind of anxious. I haven't felt this anxious in a while about a video that I made. So, anyway, guys, take care of yourself. Thank you for watching / listening, and I will see you soon with the Mushoku Tensei reaction when I get to it. Bye, guys.